Hello everyone and welcome once again to biology class of Fun Scholar. So today we are going to deal with the chapter the flower that is in the ICSE board class 9. And as you have already studied about the basic parts of a flower and also the four main holes in a flower, so we'll discuss them again for the purpose of recapitulation in this chapter, and also we'll see another parts of flowers which you haven't dealt with till now. So let's begin. So as we already know that flower is the reproductive organ of a plant, and it is the most attractive part also. It is a thing of beauty which attracts the pollinators such as the insects, animals or the human beings with their beautiful colors and fragrances for the purpose of pollination. Now, if we talk about the basic structure of flower, the flower is situated on a base called the thalamus. The thalamus, it is the enlarged tip where the petals and other floral parts arise. Other floral parts like the sepals, then the stamens, they all arise from this base called the thalamus. Now we'll watch a video to recapitulate our idea about the typical structure of a flower. So let's watch it.
In our previous videos, we have looked at leaves, their structure, modifications in them, and many such interesting concepts. Now let's talk about the next organ of the plant body. The most important organ that serves the function of reproduction. I'm referring to the flower. Wait, flowers are meant to enhance the beauty of the plant, right? They make the plant look beautiful. So why are we saying that they are instrumental in the reproductive process? Well, that's because the primary function of any flower is always reproduction. It's not to enhance the beauty of the plant. So let's study this organ in detail. This is how the typical structure of a flower looks. The parts are more or less same in all the flowers. So we consider this as a representative figure to study the structure and parts of all flowers. Let us get to know the flower as we gradually move from its core to the exterior. So this first structure that we can see here is called the pistil. If we zoom in on the structure, you will notice that it has a slender top and a bulge at the bottom. This structure on top is usually sticky and is called the stigma. The slender tube-like structure is called the style, and this bulging bottom is nothing but the ovary. Wait, if this is the ovary, then does that mean that this structure is the female reproductive part of the flower? Yes, it is. The pistil is the female reproductive part of the flower. So our next part will be the male reproductive part. Yes, these long filaments that we can see are the male reproductive organs, each called the stamen. The stamen consists of this filament, and this bag on top is known as the anther. The anther contains the golden grains, which are nothing but the male gametes of the plant. Now the next structure in our list would be these delicate and colorful ones. We know these structures, right? They are called petals. And these lower green colored structures are known as sepals. Now among all these structures, the male and the female reproductive organs are categorized as the essential parts, whereas the petals and the sepals are categorized as the non-essential parts. But why is this? Are they not necessary for the flower? No, that's not the case. They are necessary, and let's see how. The essential parts are directly involved in reproduction, while the non-essential parts are not. In simple words, the male and the female reproductive parts the sepals are not directly involved in it. In fact, the petals are only meant for attracting birds and insects for pollination. That is the reason why they are so vibrant and beautifully colored. By the way, what do we mean by pollination? Coming up next, let's learn about this beautiful process and even understand the role of each part of a typical flower.
So from this video, we have basically understood about the essential parts which directly take part in the process of reproduction in flowers, and they are the androecium and the gynoecium. The androecium consists of the stamens, which are the male reproductive parts, and stamen consists of the two parts, the anther and the filament. On the other hand, the female reproductive part or the gynoecium consists of the pistil, and pistil contains three parts, that is the stigma, style and the ovary. Now ovary is the site where fertilization takes place. Fertilization is the process where the male gamete and the female gamete of the plant fuse together to form the zygote, and this zygote develops further to form the embryo, which is the future baby plant. So we'll see more details regarding this process subsequently. So let's proceed. Now the four holes about which we have already known in the lower classes. So let's recapitulate once more here. Calyx is the outermost hole which consists of the green leaf-like structures called the sepals. And the purpose of the sepals is to protect the flower at its birth stage, and since they are green in color, so that means they contain the pigment called chlorophyll, hence they can also participate in the food making process, that is photosynthesis. Next, the second hole from outside to the inner side is the corolla, and corolla is made up of petals which are brightly colored as well as scented in order to attract the pollinators. Now the third hole is constituted by the male part, that is the androecium, and as I already discussed after the video that they are composed of stamens which are then composed of the anther or the sac-like structure which will contain the male gametes called the pollen grains, and the stalk which will attach the sac to the base, that is the filament. This is the enlarged view of a stamen consisting of the anther and the filament, and this is the inside view of the anther which consists of the pollen sacs inside which the pollen grains grow and develop. Then the last hole, which is innermost, that is the gynoecium, and it is composed of the pistil, and pistil has got three parts, the stigma, the style and the ovary. And as I said, ovary contains the female gametes, that is the ovules, and it is also the site where fertilization process takes place. Now we will come to the categories of different types of the calyx. So therefore this part we haven't dealt with till now, but from this part we are dealing for the first time in this chapter and in this grade. So therefore first of all we'll know about different types of calyx. Now calyx means the outermost hole, and which contains the individual parts known as the sepals. Now the type of calyx can be either polysepalous or gamosepalous. Now polysepalous means in which sepals are free. They are free from each other and they have an individual identity. That means you can identify each sepal separately. Example, the mustard flower. On the other hand, gamosepalous calyx means the sepals are fused together. You cannot identify that how many sepals or that what is the individual structure of the sepals, because they are all fused together to form a tube-like structure. See, this is the gamosepalous. In case of the hibiscus flower, it is forming a tube-like structure and the actual number of sepals cannot be identified. While on the other hand, in the rose flower, each sepal is separate. You can count them and also identify them. Now coming to the next category of calyx, that is persistent and deciduous calyx. So in case of persistent calyx, as the name suggests, persistent means which remains constant. So it remains even after flowering. Example, brinjal, as you can see in the flower in the picture. So in case of brinjal, the sepals, they remain attached to the fruit. In this case, brinjal is the fruit even after the fertilization process is over and the function of the calyx is over. Then also it remains attached. That is why it is known as persistent calyx. On the other hand, deciduous calyx falls off after blooming. So when the flower comes out, because the function of the sepal is to protect the flower at its birth stage. Now once the flower blooms, there is no function of the sepals. So after its function is over, the sepals fall off in case of deciduous calyx. And the examples are papaya. Here you can see there is no sign of any sepal which is persistent even after the flowering or the fruiting. Now coming to the cases of modified sepals. So sepals in some plants can be modified to look just like the petals. That means they will be colorful, and whenever they will be colorful, they will attract the pollinators for the purpose of pollination. Here you can see that the petals are reduced in size, and this white portions, they look like petals, but they are actually not the petals, they are the sepals. So therefore they are known as the petaloid. That means just like the petals. So they are colorful, they are colorful because they will contain the chromoplast which will attribute color, and since they are colorful, they will attract the pollinators. Now coming to the different categories of corolla, that is the second non-essential hole in case of flower. So based on shape, the corolla can be of different types. For example, the tubular corolla. Here the petals are united to form a tube. You can see a tube-like structure. The petals that is the case of the datura flower. In this case, the petals are fused together to form a slender tube. Then the campulate. Campulate means they are hanging just like the bell, and the name is also bell flower. So their petals form a bell shape, and this is known as campanulate shape. Then in cruciform, cruciform means the cross that we see in case of the crucifixion of the Jesus Christ. So that shape only. That means four free petals, they are arranged in cross. That you can see in case of mustard flower. Here the four petals, they will be arranged opposite to each other to form a cruciform shape. And papilionaceous means the butterfly shape. Here there will be 4 to 5 petals, and they will come together to form the papilionaceous, the type of corolla, that means the butterfly shaped corolla, and it is found in the pea family. Pea family is also known as papilionaceous family because it contains this type of corolla. Now, according to the structure, the corolla or the petals can be polypetalous or gamopetalous. Again, in case of polypetalous, they are free from one another. So you can count the number of petals in this case. Example, rose and mustard. And in case of gamopetalous, they are fused to one another, and there is no distinction between the separate petals. So the examples include the tura, petunia, all these flowers. Now the petals can also be modified to form various structures. First of all, we'll know about nectar guide. What is a nectar guide? Nectar guide is this tube-like structure you can see, which is formed inside the flower, through which the pollinators who thrive on this nectar as food resource, so they can draw nectar by injecting their mouth parts through their through this nectar guide. So this actually guides the pollinators to the nectar, which is present at the base or at the base of the either the ovary or the petal. So therefore they are named as nectar guides, and they help the pollinators to draw the nectar and during the process of pollination. Now spurs for storing nectar. What are spurs? Spurs you can see here, they are the structures which actually store the nectar which is produced by the flower. So we know nectar is the reward for the pollinators because they come in search of nectar only. That is when unknowingly they pollinate the flowers. So that is why the flowers produce the nectar in order to draw the pollinators. So that nectar is stored in structures such as the spur, and it is formed by the petals only, the modified petal structure. Then comes the trap. Trap means in which they actually trap the insects. So all the insectivorous plants in which the petals are modified, such as this is the Venus flytrap, in which they close once the insect sits on them, and they have also got spines on the edges of the petals so that they do not escape. So that is the example. Now coming to the variation in stamen arrangement. So stamen can also, which is the part of the androecium, or it is the male reproductive part, it can also be arranged in different ways. So based on fusion of filaments or anthers, we have categorized stamen into different types. First one is the monoadelphous. In case of monoadelphous, the stamens are united by filaments. Example, in case of hibiscus, you can see here that the filaments means the stalk of the stamen which holds the sac or the anther on the top, they are fused together. So this is the structure. So they are fused together, and the stalk they are fused together, and it is the case of monoadelphous stamen. Then diadelphous stamen, in di means two. So diadelphous means two bundles of stamens. So the stamens are united into two bundles by fusion of their filaments, and the anther remain the free because the sacs are free, and this type of arrangement can be seen in case of the pea plant. You can see here one bundle and this one is the separate, so this forms another bundle. So two bundles are formed by the group of stamens that is known as diadelphous. Now polyadelphous, in this many bundles are formed. That is seen in case of citrus fruits. So you can see here that so many bundles are formed by the group of stamens. So the different groups, they remain together to form many bundles. Now syngenesious, in this anthers, so till now we have seen that the filaments are united and the anthers are free, but in case of syngenesious, the anthers are united but the filaments will be free. The example includes the sunflower. Here the anthers are united together, means on the top they are united together, but their stalks will remain free. Now the stamens modification. Stamen can be fertile, in which it will produce the pollen or the male gamete, which is going to fertilize the female gamete or the ovule. Or it can be staminode, means that will be sterile and will not produce any pollen, and that will only be utilized for ornamental purpose or for the purpose of decoration. Modified stamens may assist in pollination or flower display. So since the stamens can be colorful also, so they can also help in the pollination purpose. This fertile stamen, when they produce the pollen, so they will participate in pollination purpose, but when they are staminodes, they will participate in flower display purpose. Now coming to gynoecium, now based on the number of carpels, carpel means the stigma, style and ovary together is known as a single carpel. So based on the number of carpels, we have monocarpellary flower, in which we have single carpel. Mono means one, so example is P, and multi means many. So multicarpellary means more than one carpel, or more than, in which many female reproductive organs will be found. Example tomato. So here you can see the P, that is the monocarpellary, and here it is the tomato, which is multicarpellary. Now based on the carpel fusion, again we have two types. Apocarpus means the carpels are free, means they are not attached to one another, and you can actually count the number of female reproductive organs or the carpels. Example lotus. Here you can see the stigma is present, the top which is viewed. So these are all the stigmas which is popping out. So you can actually count the number of stigmas, right? And since